on the lower end, but I am concerned for Nikos Foss to maybe not be able to hit all of the removal as consistently compared to the older version. I think the call to cut Rattlegore is pretty heads up though, because if you are just banning Priest, there's not, I mean, I don't actually think there's many matchups where the Rattlegore is essential to get you a win, especially if you're not expecting very much Warlock in the field.
Yeah, it's almost exclusively Warlock these days. Against every other deck, it just seems too slow, having no effect. Just when played onto the board. Even Priest, it can sometimes be a liability because they can copy it and they can do more with it than you can. So, ooh, interesting. Not playing the Armor Bender on one. Probably a nod to a potential Octobot, I suppose.
Yeah, I definitely think that's what's on Nikos Foss's mind. And also with this Minefield, he's probably just hoping to maybe sweep up a couple of Glory's minions with which he wouldn't want his own minion to interfere. But the Octobot coming down at this time is actually pretty problematic because Minefield is going to give Glory the proc.
How will the answer by Kargath?
Funny that Nikos Foss is actually running 2 copies of Stage Dive. Traditionally, most warriors of the control variant are only running 1 copy to pull either Kargath or Kargath Prime. But he has 2 in there, so he can probably just whiff on the second one.
Just really wants to make sure that at any point in the game he has some form of Kargath in his hand. Which, you know, I guess can be an important card in some matchups, but not the end-all be-all. Glory's Secret Passage finds not the best resources, but at least it'll pull the cards out of his deck. He is playing quite fast. I don't think he wants to play the second Shadow Step, because even though it'll pull it out of his deck, it is a pretty good card against Control Warrior to be able to do some combos for damage later on in the game.
Yeah, yeah, interesting here. I thought he would hold on to it as well, but it appears that he is holding onto the Guardian Augmerchant instead to have guaranteed for his field contact turn. And it's already going to show that Glory is not kind of shoehorning himself into the Alex Tenwu combo for the late game plan, which obviously can be countered by Bulwark of Azzinoth from the Warrior side. And he's just prioritizing making sure that he gets to put threats on the board every single turn, with which getting a big field contact turn really helps that game plan.
Yep. He's going to be able to clear off his Playmatch Emerald, build a board, draw some cards. Still hurting a little bit for resources, especially with Prize Plunder Double Brain Freeze picked up, but Nikos Foss is running, as we mentioned, a little bit more of a minion-heavy version of the deck. I feel won't quite clear up everything, but does get rid of the field contact, which is the important thing here.
That's huge. The Minefield was, in most cases, likely to leave up either the 3-1 Foxy Fraud or the 3-1 field contact. It turned out that Nikos Foss gets an even better outcome where he removes both of the high attack minions, but he was just saying there, as long as he removes the field contact, then he's in a decent spot.
Oh, Kazak is picked up. Summon a copy, was offered Divine Shield as well, which is the best proactive Golem. And I would be surprised if Glory didn't pick that. It did seem like he was offered +2/+2, and Divine Shield seemed like the best option, knowing that he would have the board going into the Golem turn to pick.
Yeah. And I think because he is leading up to a Golem turn, he is just using his Prize Plunders very, very aggressively, trying to develop minions that mess with the potential Blade Storm, which is the best answer to the Greater Golem, even with Divine Shield. If it's the only minion on board, both of them die to a singular Blade Storm, but with a Prize Plunder in the way, or rather 2 of them, because Nikos also has a weapon, then Nikos might be having to use a Brawl instead, which potentially leaves Glory with a more durable board at the end of it.
We're just playing fast and furious right now. He's just feeling it.
They are hungry to get to the end of the Swiss rounds.
Yeah.
Glory did set up for a Golem surviving, giving himself the best possible odds by playing out the Prize Plunders as aggressively as possible. Gets to push more damage for it, gets a decent Jandis indeed, and he's just sitting on Alex Tenwu. This is just a curve all the way up from Glory.
Just as a clarification, are both these players 6'2"?
I'm not sure, but you're right. The total should be 8 and not 7 at the moment. Because their win-loss totals are adding up to 7, so we'll get some confirmation on that a little bit later. But for now,
yeah, okay.
Pickup on the Kargath Prime is enormous for Nikos Foss here because he didn't have a great way of dealing with the entire board, but with the armor he gains from that, he doesn't necessarily have to. Oh, looks like he's holding on to it so he can go for Blade Storm and swing instead.
Okay, well, lose the board, but life total is still an issue. Kargath Prime, so expensive, will likely leave still a decent amount of power on board. Glory's been putting in dagger ups as well.
Kargath Prime will let Nikos Foss stabilize, but this Envoy Rustwix potentially has huge implications because Glory was running dry of resources to the point where even if he did manage to top deck Secret Passage, a lot of his heavy hitters are already been played or in hand. But the Rustwix now potentially gives Glory ways to generate value that he so sorely lacks.
That's okay.
5 drop, that gives you 8 drops sometimes. 10 drops even.
To make a wager, friend.
Yeah, and sometimes those 8 drops bring back Envoy Rustwix, which is such a 5 drop.
Biscuit's an interesting choice because we've already seen the Tenwu get played. Sometimes Biscuit's pretty good to start with Alex and then use Biscuit to Tenwu and get that all done even without Octobot discounts. But Glory just picking up a Kargath Prime for his own, not even counting what's in the Envoy Rustwix. Fresh played before the Rancor, so Nikos can immediately get the 8 armor off of the Frenzy. It's a lot of staying power, but Glory has refill.
Yep, including a Kargath Prime picked up by the Vanessa Van Cleef. Just gonna tank the 10. Who cares?
Yeah.
Because he's gonna gain it all back.
I mean, even if he didn't, 24 is super safe against Control Warrior. All he's trying to do is eke the most value out of every single minion that sticks, and so far he's been succeeding with that. The Cthulhu pieces for Nikos Foss not really helping here. I think he would rather have the streamlined version of the deck for this particular matchup.
Yeah, there's absolutely no chance that this matchup ever gets to a point where Nikos Foss is playing all the Cthulhu pieces and then playing Cthulhu.
And the stage dive is drawing nothing because both Kargath and Kargath Prime have been played already. Unless I'm missing something in the deck list.
No, I don't think you are.
Oh, sorry. He has a Samuro. I just noticed.
Well, yeah, but the Samuro was also played.
True.
Oh, it's nothing. It's big enough nothing.
As for Glory, it's just threats after threats.
Oh
my gosh!
The Envoy Rustwix.
He has to play 3 Kargath Primes this game.
Oh, wow.
If he even needs to, he is just beating down on the door of Nikos Foss's Control Warrior.
Does have Bulwark. Would have to override this weapon. I don't even remember what it's called. But
Turtle Spike.
Ryan? Turtle Spike, sure. I'll believe you, even though I still wouldn't even know. And it's kind of a necessity here since Wicked Steps are still remaining, and Glory has drawn through most of the deck.
And that does mean that Glory has to take some time to weave in some dagger hits, but he has all the time in the world just face down with 4 points of pressure on the other side, and with 2 Kargath Primes. This just looks like a Prime and dagger face turn to me. But Glory says he wants something better. He wants to see what the other Primes he generated were. Dixor, okay. Akama is decent. It's stealth, perma-stealth.
Yeah, it could fit in a dagger as well, which is quite good to be able to start taking off these bulwark charges.
I think he was also specifically looking for Wand Thief to try and fish for Mask of Cthulhu, but nothing particularly useful picked up. One of these secrets, maybe gives Glory some board development, but I don't think it's worth playing that over a Kama Prime and getting that dagger, all-important dagger through.
All right, 3 more turns.
The Akama is, you know, I guess not the hugest problem for Nikos Foss because he has Ysera Awakens, but that's mana that Glory is forcing him to spend. As it happens, it works out pretty cleanly here because he can still just go Scrap Golem Hero Power.
Yeah. Pretty good mana expenditure. Problem, I think, for Nikos Foss is a problem that you run into often as control warriors. You're just not really counter pressuring until you get to like the N'Zoth territory, and so you really are in a situation where you have to live through all of the resources of your opponent, and not necessarily bank on a game plan that is okay, kill my opponent. Instead, make them use all of their cards and then win the game because they're out of stuff.
Pretty surprised to see the Nightmare used on the Scrap Golem because Nikos knows about one Kargath Prime in hand because he dreamed it back, right? So he wasn't actually protecting against the dagger in that situation.
I am so chaos.
But it is true that he's hardly gonna get a good use out of the Nightmare in the near future because he's nowhere near pressuring down Glory for counter lethal. Second Scrap Golem can fall to third Kargath Prime. Anything for Glory to be able to fit in that dagger to face. Looks clean enough here. And not seeing it. Nikos Foss has only one charge of the Bulwark left. He has a lot of armor, to be fair. Trade Rancor is a way to get even more armor, and he can fit in Body of Cthulhu, or just Heart and Body, sure.
Yep. I mean, a N'Zoth pickup could change things, right? N'Zoth picked up might be able to end the game, because I don't know if Glory has just enough damage, period, to get through everything. I think there's still one Prime that we have not seen.
No, we've seen them all, right? Zixor, Akama, and Kargath.
Oh yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, I had forgotten about the Akama.
No worries, it was pretty insignificant, immediately dying to the Awakens. But the Mankrake is something I forgot about, which is super relevant here. Basically any points of extra burst that Glory can put together is huge here, because as it happens, just the Wicked Stab is not going to get there. Which I've used just to play around Counterspell.
Yeah. Hey, it's got a use after all.
Another Prime! Are you joking?
That'll be the 4th one. The 4th Kargath Prime played in the game, if it even gets to that point, which it probably will.
That's crazy. Any singular threat is huge for Glory here because it means that Nikos Foss has to deal with one more thing before N'Zoth comes down. 12 points of burst in hand for Glory. Mankrake into Swindle will guaranteed pull him the 3-7 and the Kargath Prime.
Yep. And I think you just go for it. Seen both Blade Storms, right? Both brawls.
Still one more Rancor to contend with, but just Rancor doesn't deal with this board, right? The minions have too much health on them.
Yeah, it'd have to be something extra.
I'm almost out of cards.
And we're really not that much damage short now.
I'm out of cards.
Down to 15.
Say he does top deck N'Zoth, is that enough to immediately stay alive? He'll get Crush and the Scrap Golem. That feels like it's enough. But that's not N'Zoth.
How about an acidic swamp ooze? Is that enough? Absolutely not.
With Dream, he can leave 8 points of damage on the other side. He can armor up and go to 17. So he would still be dead.
Yeah.
And so he has to go fishing with the Outrider's Axe now. can use Outrider on Mankrik 3-4 to set up 2 or 3 minions dying to Rancor. He can throw the Ooze into that mix to get 4 minions to die to Rancor, but at that point the Ooze is basically the same as a hero power, so don't know what that accomplishes.
Yeah.
I gotta move.
Well, it gets rid of the dagger, I suppose. That's something. Rancor, and then he's going to dream the 3-7 Mankrik, I guess. Or not, just going to take a swing. He's alive. Just barely. He's alive at 1.
With these minions, yeah, alive at 1. Gorge is gonna press in.
And once again, we're talking N'Zoth top deck, which he would be able to like dream at that point, but yeah, nothing doing. Okay, so dream the Kargath. If the Eye of Cthulhu is extremely cooperative and kills the 3-5, then he can armor up to 14. Actually, even if he doesn't kill the 3-5, just the armor vendor will get him out of immediate range.
Armor! Lightly used armor.
Still no way to kill the Mankrik.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he can take a shot with the Eye.
Yeah! Alright, first 3-1 phase, so it doesn't matter.
At least it let us know immediately.
And funnily enough, like the Cthulhu is shuffled into the deck, but Glory's at
You're right.
quite a high life total because of the Kargath Primes and can get even more with the next Kargath Prime in the hand, so won't even matter.
However, Nikosfas has perfect information of Glory's burst from here, so the Cthulhu is actually still a good top deck for Nikosfas, because he would still be alive at 1 against Cthulhu, but Mutinous is absolutely not it.
Draw Mutinous after your opponent plays literally the last minute in their entire deck.
And that's gonna be it. Because Nikosfas had to face tank that damage, he is dead here. But if the Cthulhu were the top deck instead of the Mutinous, he would have been alive at 1, even against double Wicked Stab and Dagger, and from that point could just hero power every turn and stabilize.
Yeah, well, very likely, right? There would have been a small chance for Cthulhu to actually not kill the Kargath Prime, though very unlikely.
Oh. Glory just got there! This matchup is really difficult for Rogue traditionally, but it's worth noting that Nikosfas' list is a little bit greedier than the average Control Warriors we're seeing. It has only 1 copy of Minefield to make room for all of that top end, and the Cthulhu probably doing more harm than good in terms of streamlining the removal options from Nikosfas for this matchup in particular.
Yeah, and it took some crazy circumstances for Glory to have the gas to actually get there, right? Getting multiple generated Kargath Primes, one from Vanessa and then one from the Netherwind portal summon, which also delayed fatigue. Not that that really mattered, but combined with the armor gain did matter. And then, of course, just having extra minions from the Envoy Rustwicks. And he needed pretty much all of that. To actually get the win. So Nikosfas was still close to stabilizing. Just needed like 1 less resource to be generated from Gory in that game. So I don't think we can write that one off as, Control Warrior is just not good enough.
Of course.
In 99% of like panouts in that situation, if it's not Envoy Rustwicks from the Jandis, Nikosfas still gets there, but not that game. Not that game.
For sure. I think obviously Glory had to get extremely fortunate there. The point I was trying to drive home is that if you are going to bring Control Warrior, I do think that if you are going to ban Priest, then Cthulhu might be losing a couple of percentage points in the matchups that most heavily justify bringing Control Warrior in the first place, like up against Rogue. Does mean that Glory only has to win with his Rush Warrior now, though, which it's not undoable to sweep this with the remaining decks for Nikos Foss, but he doesn't have any strong favorables here. I think the Control Warrior versus Rush Warrior matchup is still debatable. Some people are in the camp of the Control Warrior there, but I think Rush Warrior has a lot of game if they play very greedily with their conditionings. And then Token Druid can sometimes be tough to get a win through against Rush Warrior if they get either a timely Samuro or a very strong opening curve.
It's all dependent on that. But let's get into the Warrior Mirror, though. Control Warrior versus the Rush Warrior. And as weird as this sounds, like Overlord Runthak and Ringmaster Watley in the opening hand, not even that bad against Control Warrior.
Yeah, it's pretty excellent. If you line up 30 cards for 30 cards, then absolutely yes, the Control Warrior has enough tools to delete everything from the Rush Warrior side. But the thing is, the Control Warrior's draw is dependent mostly on Outrider's Axe. If Glory fashions himself a game where all of his minions are buffed beyond 3 health and Nikos Foss has to do extra things to actually draw with the Outrider's Axe, then Glory might be able to build himself a window where he can beat down Nikos Foss because Nikos will not necessarily have drawn all the removal tools he needs.
And that's the key. Needs the conditioning, though. That's the kind of one piece of the puzzle that Glory's missing. And hand is a little clunky at the moment just because there's not really anything proactive that Glory can do, just armoring up it in this early game, but we'll be able to hit his stride now that he's going to get to this 5 mana point.
A bit awkward though, because starting with the Watley means that he would overdraw, drawing 3 more cards here. He's already at 8. So it looks like he's going to start with the Runthak instead, which it does get an immediate value off of it, which is not often that you actually have targets to rush into against Control Warrior, so it's decent here. And it's not straight up dead to the Outrider's Axe, which is the most important part. He definitely does not want to give Nikos Foss any more draw than the bare minimum.
Oh yeah, that's a big crash.
But one shield slam away from Doom. Well, the hero power has to happen first, which is a pretty big deal because, well, actually, Nikos Foss, I don't think denying the armor is a big deal, actually. It might be better to just shield slam for 8 so that he can then finish it off with the swing and fit in the body of Cthulhu.
Yeah, I think that's, because again, it's all about just running them out of resources. It's very rare that you find yourself in a position where you're killing them. Usually they'll concede long before you're able to kill them because you just have an overwhelming resource lead and they've just killed all their stuff and they're out of stuff themselves.
Right.
This game, Glory, unlikely to be out of stuff for some time. That's still faced with the problem of can't really Ringmaster Watley.
Yeah, so Parade Leader Samuro looks pretty decent here just to get the full clear push and damage face. Unfortunately, there was no way to get a clear here that didn't involve giving Nikos Foss a target for the Outrider's Axe, so Glory's gone about it in such a way that if you swing into one, at least I stick another minion here. Going Minefield, so he goes Scrap Golem. Honestly, I was tempted to still take a swing there just to get the guaranteed draw. But then again, Nikos Foss hasn't seen a conditioning, so maybe he's still reasonably confident he can get targets.
You gonna cry?
Absolutely
Running
is
low on resources, though, so... But yeah, you're right. There is most likely going to be targets at some point, but... like the faster you draw cards, the more efficient you can usually be with your removal. Because, seeing one card deeper means that you might find a better way to clear the board that's in front of you.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance that he has to toe because the weapon itself is also a removal tool in some senses that doubles as a card draw engine. So Nikos Foss's judgment on whether or not you can afford to actually use a swing for no additional value than the card draw is going to be paramount here. And so far he's been rewarded for that sequence. His own N'Zoth is not nearly juiced enough, I think. Just the one Scrap Golem in there.
Yeah.
The Samuro not being pulled by stage dive makes it very difficult to actually get good usage out of it, but it can at the very least put the Sword Eater to a range where the Outrider's Axe can give Nikos a draw. Okay, that's big. Don't necessarily know if that's the weapon he wanted to see here, but it's card draw. Card draw is always relevant.
Yep. And Bulwark can sometimes be difficult for a Rush Warrior to like efficiently get through, because they have like these big chunky minions on board. The weapon does help, but it's not like a Rogue Dagger or Ping or anything like that where you can like play your cards and get through it a little bit faster.
Like the resource partitioning from Glory didn't overextend there, made a board state that's not all dead to Bladestorm, not particularly good for Brawl, and also nothing within the range of second Outrider's Axe, which he knows is a 50-50 of having been drawn by the Corsair cache. Was held onto that armor vendor last turn as well, even though he had the 1 mana floated because he has the Shield Slam, and now it could come in clutch to give him a single answer to either the Watley or the Tent Trasher. Ooh.
Oh, okay.
Just gonna get the 1 Scrap Golem, right?
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
So a low value N'Zoth, but Nikos Foss is saying he needs to do something proactive here. Just Armor Vendor and Shield Slam was not good enough with all the mana he'd be floating. And I think this is a relief for Glory to see, honestly. Just the fact that the N'Zoth is already out of the way, and he has so easy of a way to deal with this.
Yep. In fact, it's going to work in his favor because he also gets to use it to push damage. I don't think so.
No, yeah.
It's going to gain armor.
Here for a good time.
It's a lot of damage though, especially since the Tent Trasher is essentially pushing 7 here with the ETC.
Here for a
Wait.
And I think that's... it is! Oh my goodness! Okay, I don't know if Glory counted that fast. Whether or not he did though, it was good recognition to just cash in with ETC there. Say even if Nikos has had another 10 armor, because there's not many situations where the Control Warrior will actually have enough health on board that you're actually able to rush that many minions into.
Yeah.
And it's not that often that you will have stuck a Tent Trasher to already get value off of ETC. So just so cleanly done by Glory. Complete beatdown there without having seen even a single conditioning.
Yeah, pretty impressive, and even had some extra damage at the end with a weapon swing still available after Nikos Foss had already died. Quite the impressive game, and you know I think that Control Warrior just feels like sometimes the removal just doesn't line up well enough. Right, to the point where you can get through all the threats. Obviously, if they have a fast start, sometimes it can work out, but just didn't in this game. And in this series, where Nikos Foss just queued up Control Warrior 3 times and lost 3 times. So 6-3 score is still respectable, especially since not many Control Warriors made it that far in the field. So obviously had some success throughout the tournament, but we'll miss out on the money a little bit this time.
Yeah, that's pretty rough, but congratulations to Glory, coming off the back of a pretty decent run throughout the Grandmasters season, and following it up with a decent run through the Masters Tour is nothing to scoff at. Definitely can't accuse him of being one of those world champions that just slacks off after they get their big win. And it's also just another feather in Japan's cap, because, I mean, prior to this round, there were already, I think, 4 Japanese players in the top 16. Glory could be sneaking his way up there, but with a 7-2 score, there's going to be a lot of tiebreakers to have to contend with.
Yeah, and since it seemed like he took his loss, his second loss, at least somewhat early, tiebreakers may not line up super well for him, but we'll have to see once we get the full breakdown after round 9 is finished up, which I've been told that it has not just yet. Which means we have another series to cover before we wrap things up. And I'm not even gonna try and pronounce that. Gia, go ahead.
Yeah, this is HS Could Die Biao, I think, versus Strike Reaper. And admittedly, I'm not too familiar with Strike Reaper. I misread his name as Strike Right even. That's a player I know, but hasn't been active in HS for quite some time. Whereas Could Die Biao is a name I've seen in many, many Masters tours. Just one of those consistent players in the vein of like people like High3 and Give Please in APAC, for example, where they slowly but surely have been accruing points, even though they haven't had one of those big finishes. And this might be the big chance for Could Die Biao to actually put a significant win on the board.
Yeah, Strike Reaper actually from Switzerland. Not many Swiss players in the competitive Hearthstone scene. In fact, it's been a long time since I've even seen the Swiss flag next to a player's name when it comes to Hearthstone. So pretty cool to see that. He's doing quite well for himself. We're going to jump into the series in progress. Of course, since we're about to wrap up the round, Strike Reaper with a 2-0 lead over Could Die Biao. I have to say it slowly or else I'll mess it up. And Token Druid going to be the deck of choice.
Yeah, this is a deck that has been relatively popular throughout the Masters Tour. I'm still struggling to see what matchup it really, really shines against other than particularly Mage, which is not all that popular because I don't think Token Druid has that good of a matchup against Rogue, which is another really common inclusion you might be seeing. I don't necessarily know if it's that good against OTK Demon Hunter, although the matchup on that varies depending on what kind of bracket of legend you look through on ladder stats.
Yeah, it certainly does. There's a resizing pouch here, Gia, so I will rate this Token Druid 8 out of 10. It'd be a 10 out of 10 if the guidance was a second resizing pouch. And it'd be a 0 out of 10 if there was 0 resizing pouch.
There's also 1 pounce in there, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, exciting is definitely the word that I was looking for.
He's cut an Innervate to make room for this pounce, which is interesting, I have to say. Innervate tends to be a very, very good card. But I can see the pounce potentially having utility in the Rogue matchup in particular as a way to beat Cult Neophyte. Beat is a strong word. Just answer a Cult Neophyte. It often means you still delete a good turn by virtue of the Rogue having played Cult Neophyte. But if a lot of the time, if you don't have exactly Lunar Eclipse to deal with that or Field Contact, then you're just kind of conceding to the Rogue, whereas the Pounce gives you one additional answer that is still playable even after a Cult Neophyte comes down.
Yep. And normally I would insert my, well, resizing pouch can bind Pounce argument, but just having it in the deck and being able to play it for no mana cost without having to like maneuver your mana to get 0 mana left and then play it for the resizing pouches. Still a benefit. But we'll see how it's going to work out. This seems like both players had this was a mirrored lineups back and forth. It's a reasonably popular lineup. I don't think it's as popular as the Control Priest, Miracle Rogue, Rush Warrior, and what can I think of the 4th deck right now?
Priest?
Did I say Priest? Control Priest, Miracle Rogue.
Token Druid, Rush Warrior. You definitely said Rush Warrior.
Rush Warrior. Yeah, but what's the deck that's not Token Druid that's been in all?
Sorry,
OTK Demon Hunter.
Demon Hunter. Yeah.
There you go. OTK Demon Hunter. At least I don't. Just based off feeling, I don't think it's been as popular.
Yeah, true. There is Alutemu that is running this lineup, but without the Rogue instead, and has the Demon and the Druid in there. So I think
I like
people
that.
tend to view the Rush Warrior and the Control Priest as the 2 core decks to the standard lineup, whereas maybe prior to this week it would have been Rogue and Priest. But getting into the nitty-gritty of the matchup itself, we do see this Cult Neophyte available for Strike Reaper, which in terms of timing, it feels a bit awkward. Like, generally, you do want to play this going into the 3-mana turn, but this is a situation where Kadai has already drawn quite a bit, and so he wouldn't be looking to fungal fortunes here necessarily in the first place. So Strike Reaper may be holding on to it to go into a Glowfly turn instead.
Yeah, which I think is wise, but alas. This was the Glowfly turn.
Got him.
Yeah. And Pounce getting to show off a little bit. Normally you'd have to use a Lunar Eclipse there to kill off that Foxy Fraud. But gets to get one additional 2/2 for his tech choice.
But at least Strike Reaper did get down the Octobot last turn, right? So he can go for a field contact turn here. It doesn't look particularly strong, I have to admit, but all the alternatives look very sad indeed, especially looking at this Pride's Fury in Kadai Biao's hand. Tap the Neophyte.
Yeah, could set the Neophyte, maybe find Brain Freeze or Prize Plunder, or just Secret Passage for 0 mana to try and hit either of those. Anyway, it's both literally the first 2 cards.
Yeah.
Prize Plunder more beneficial though.
Because of the body it leaves on board. I guess the decision to hold on to the Shadow Step for Strike Reaper there is with that Jandis that he's got. One Neophyte is generally enough to already get rid of the best potential from a Druid turn, so the second one would have mostly just been to keep the field contact train going, but I think this is smart from Strike Reaper to just make sure that he can start counter-pressuring because he's kind of out of good removal tools at this point, so the next best thing he can do is develop minions.
And minions he shall develop. 5 drops, to be specific.
Or not.
Probably.
Okay.
The Vanessa can get him a Lunar Eclipse. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, even though he doesn't actually cheapen any spells, he gets to develop, admittedly, not 5 drops, but removes more of Kadai Biao's minions in the meantime guaranteed. There's an argument for daggering up here instead. Oh, okay. Steps Vanessa so he can Lunar this turn.
Okay.
Job done.
Most defensive he could have possibly been going into a Pride's Fury or Glowfly Arbor Upturn. But speak of the devil, this is what Strike Reaper did not want to see, the redevelopment. He was playing around all of the payoff cards, which were more likely to happen this turn than the redevelopment, but this one is not going to be a full clear.
Yeah, it's not the most redevelopment. Oh, wow, okay. 2 large taunt minions to put in the way, and still gets to trade off some things. Brain Freeze picked up as well, which means he gets to clear up a lot of this redevelopment, and if the Janda sticks, which it will, because there's just no removal left for Kadai Biao because he's already used the Lunar Eclipses, then Tenwu can come down next turn.
Enormous. The Brain Freeze was enormous because I was going to say, if there were 2 minions that stuck, I would hear the argument for Solar Soul of the Forest and then just trade away so that your guys multiply into 4 minions. That's obviously not worth it with only 1 minion on board though, so the Jandis will stick around. Kadai Biao didn't top deck Resizing Pouch for a way to deal with it, unfortunately.
I mean, that's why you put 2 in the deck. Resizing Pouch can get you through just about any situation.
Are you joking?
Also, Talon's sneaky good too.
He was already winning so hard, but he is just gonna put Kadai Biao out of his misery even sooner. Actually, the Raz puts more power on board for Kadai Biao. Not that that's a problem for Strike Reaper, because like he's still just pushing lethal the very next turn.
Yeah.
Solar Arbor looking less than impressive in a situation like this where all the most threatening minions are hidden behind a wall of taunts. That means that Strike Reaper just sticks lethal on board.
Yep, and that'll be the game and the series. So Strike Reaper with a nice 8-1 finish.
That's a win and in to the top 16, I believe.
That is 8-1 guarantees it. So nicely done, and got to feel good in that last round, right? Since we do roll into the top 16, we play out that top 16 today to have that momentum of a 3-0 on your side going into the single elimination. So yeah, from what we saw, the 1 game sample size, hey, played well.
Absolutely. These weren't particularly difficult games, to be fair, but we will get to see more of Strike Reaper later. Just going 8-1 in a field of this caliber is super impressive, even though we didn't get to see the majority of it. Unfortunately for Baby Bear fans, though, I do believe that Strike Reaper making it into the top 16 means that she is knocked out of it. No chance to qualify from this point. So I admit I'm a little bit sad because I myself am a very big Baby Bear fan, but I'd like to see more where what we just saw came from. And because the 9th round of Swiss is still ongoing, it looks like we have even more bonus coverage for you guys.
Yeah, City versus Job Sad. Is going to be the matchup that we're jumping into. I'm not sure which game we're actually going to be jumping into of this series. Okay, from game 4 onwards, it appears. So, sorry, I didn't know that we were going to jump at this. I'm frantically trying to pull up deck lists to.
Yeah, no worries.
Have to give any type of reasonable analysis on what we're about to see.
So you took the 50-50 of starting with what game we're looking at first in terms of which you could have looked up, and then I went straight to the deck list. So we're covering for each other here, and thankfully this graphic shows us both of those pieces of relevant information. We're going to jump into game 4, where City's already on match point with a Hunter in the lineup, which I am a big fan of, Raven's a big fan of, Orange is a big fan of, but unfortunately couldn't really get the sample size to prove that this new build of the deck has what it takes, but perhaps City can avenge him somewhat, because I'm hearing whisperings that this new build with the resizing pouches, with the Moonfang in there, and the Scavenger's Ingenuity has a lot of game in the meta.
Yeah, it does. I just think that it's got a lot of game in even before the additional techs or the evolution of the deck had a lot of game. So we'll see. We shall see. Hunter has already taken a win in the series at this point, as we're going to jump into it. City has Rogue left, and Jobsad has the Warrior and Rogue left as the last 2 inclusions. Seems like it comes down to this a lot, where Rogue ends up being the deck that has not taken a win yet.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Weapon Rogue for CD. Okay.
Okay, yeah. Raven called it out. You know, I was about to say I'm pretty sad that every time we go into these REM matches, I get baited because the deck I'm most looking forward to seeing has already taken a win or something. But it turns out that this Rogue from City is not what we're used to in the standard Miracle version. He is running this Weapon Rogue, which doubles down on the Priest matchup and the Mage matchup, you have to imagine. Also is coincidentally pretty good against Control Warrior a lot of the time. Against the rest of the field, though, I'd be quite worried for it, and especially against Jobsad's lineup. This is a Rush Warrior and a Token Druid, which I feel are pretty poor matchups for the Weapon Rogue.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's a lot of pretty poor matchups for Weapon Rogue. I feel like it's been just kind of muscled out of the meta, 100% overshadowed by Doomhammer, it seems. So we'll see if he can take a win. Obviously, it still has some power levels. It just seems like other decks have gotten more powerful, more refined over time. But Weapon Rogue has still stayed the same.
And it looks like Jobsad will be on the Rush Warrior for this one. I did call it a pretty poor matchup for the Weapon Rogue, but definitely not unwinnable, right? Cloak of Shadows pulls a lot of weight in this matchup, where you can just ignore the giant boards of conditioning buffed minions and just ship everything to the face, but I tend to think that the warrior, even though the hero power is not very useful a lot of the time for Rush Warrior just because they don't have the mana flexibility to weave it in, they are running taunts, right? The Sword Eater has a relevant amount of health on it, and that can be a big problem towards the late game. And also the Crush in there for some armor game could have some major impact.
Yeah, and there's a Troublemaker that can go through Cloak of Shadows. Obviously, you know, that may not be like the biggest deciding factor in the matchup, but sometimes it can matter in those later stages when you're trying to play around these small portions of damage. But let's jump into it. Upset with a decent opening hand, but obviously not ideal.
Kind of awkward. If he could pick up another 2-drop and just skip over the stage dive, then this would be pretty sick, right? Crab Rider, if he gets Bumper Car, coins into that, gets Rakara, and then early Tent Trasher, that's another way to beat Weapon Rogue, is just present too many stats on board for them to be able to race you with their Spine Tusk Shanks. But at the same time, the stage dive looks appealing because he will be able to corrupt it with a coin Crab Rider. It's really difficult to parse. I just really like the look of 2-drop alongside Rakara, but if you don't hit another 2-drop, the curve gets very awkward.
Yes, it does. Okay, just Rakara. He does not find Weapon, which is pretty much all you're looking for if you don't already have it in the opening mulligan.
Yeah, Jobsad doesn't find Gunarg either. But obviously, in terms of who has the worst of these two deals, it's City by a long shot, because not only does he not have Swine Tusk Shank, he doesn't have Card Draw or even Secret Passage to try and look for it, so he's basically relying on the top of his deck to give him ways to get the weapon.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest downfalls. If you think the Doomhammer Shaman is all in on Doomhammer, it still has ways to deal damage outside of the Doomhammer, whereas the ways that you deal damage outside of Weapon in the Weapon Rogue are quite mediocre. It's just, all right, here's deal 3 to your face that has 0 flexibility whatsoever.
You aren't even ready.
Jobsad, I was definitely tempted by the Bumper Car in that Athletics that he's picked up, but I think he took the Emerald Sky Talon specifically because he wanted to get immediate value off of the Playmaker. Just Playmaker as a 4-3 in this matchup is already pretty threatening because you kind of conflict with the turn that they want to equip their weapon. If they are just going Swine Tusk Shank, then they're not killing the Playmaker, and you kind of force them on a turn to delay that potentially. And then he gets the additional development of 2 minions, which makes his subsequent Rakara even more threatening.
Yeah, it's all about applying that pressure, forcing the Weapon Rogue to have to pay attention to what you're doing in their life total. Because this damage is going to start to rack up. Already a wicked stab down for CD, just trying to stabilize on this board because Playmaker was too threatening. And
he can kill the Rakara. Yeah, still no weapon, but it's more about staying alive at this point. I don't know if City will really have a win condition, even if he manages to stabilize the board by that point, because it'll just be too late, and he might be dying to like weapon swings or Alexstrasza damage. But for now, game plan A is to defeat Rakara, which he has done so far. Jobsad has a relatively slow turn.
Still pushing 6.
Oh, another Rakara! That's so nuts! Disgusting. Absolutely what CD did not want to see. Already down to about half his health total. One Maker can't really pull him anything significant here.
Secret Passage to try and find weapon, but it would have to come out next turn. Yeah, Prize Plunder. Yeah, at this point he's got to be desperate. He's going to have to start using Cloak of Shadows next turn, which leaves him very limited on mana.
And Jobsad, even though he can create the buffest Gunarg you've ever seen, I think it's more responsible to go for 1 conditioning so he can fit in the Bumper Car as well.
Yep. Go a little bit wide with the threats. He's going to think it over. I think the Gnarg, though, is important to get down, just so you have the threat of the recurring damage, and the sequence of prize plunderers won't be able to push you out of the game.
I agree. The weapon damage, or the Fiery War Axe being online sooner rather than later, it can only be a benefit for Jobsad. For exactly the reasons you laid out. That is, even if City manages to pull together a miracle turn with both the prize plunderers and then a way to deal with Rikara, which honestly already sounds like a fantasy the way I'm saying it right now.
You cannot stop my work.
Oh wow, is it just armor up?
Oh, okay.
That's baffling to me.
Maybe he thinks conditioning is just a win more card, and he wants to like protect against the 0.001% chance that CD will be able to deal 26 points of damage in the maximum 2 turns that he has to survive.
Maybe. Maybe Jobsad did some super quick maths in his head, where if it was like, say, weapon plus Cloak of Shadows that turn into all the buffs and prep second Cloak of Shadows, maybe there was some way he could have died if he didn't armor up. I don't know, but obviously those were all very, very niche situations. The difference of conditioning did not matter there, because City did not even find the weapon at any point there. That was a complete beatdown and kind of makes Weapon Rogue look pathetic.
Yeah, I was a big fan of Weapon Rogue in the metagame like 5 weeks ago. The deck literally hasn't changed. It's gotten 0 new tools, no new innovations to the deck. Players have cut a sharpening sword and added in a Mancrick. Like that's the evolution that the deck has gone through, and that happened quite a while ago. But it can catch players off guard, which is the big thing. It is an aggressive deck that is not on a lot of players' radar right now. I'm sure some practice groups probably did their due diligence, and one person just threw in the Discord, what if we try Weapon Rogue, and then got laughed into existence. But
peer pressure.
I guess CD was just like, you know what, screw you guys, I'm bringing it anyway. And obviously, has been successful with it, because he's at a 6-2 score line. So you can't just skate your way through a bunch of matchups unless his other decks are just carrying him, and he has 3 chances to win with Weapon Rogue every series. But I doubt that's the case.
Agreed. I do think it has still some decent targets in the meta. Not hard targets, but it's got a decent matchup versus Miracle Rogue. You can cheat out that matchup. But other than that deck that has very little room for tech cards, a lot of the decks that are even weak to Weapon Rogue in the first place are just teching an Ooze. There's few Demon Hunters and Priests there that aren't running the Ooze, respecting the possibility of not only that, but also Doomhammer Shaman. And so I think the Weapon Rogue is not the most heads-up choice, or at least not what I would have brought to the tournament. But, like you said, CD has been having some success with it so far, and I do hope that he gets to prove why it's in the lineup on this last chance versus the more premier archetype of Rogue in the meta. You talked about how there's been very little innovation to the deck. I argue the mini set just made Weapon Rogue marginally worse, because there's now another 1-cost spell in the pool of Wandmaker, which is the Say Deviate Delight, which is pretty useless.
Yeah, and also it made another weapon class stronger. Which means that players are more likely to bring Ooze, when in the past, Weapon Rogue was like the only deck that you'd really bring Ooze for. So both of those kind of working against it. But Game 5, this is the one of the matchups that you said Weapon Rogue can capitalize on. Cold Neophytes can sometimes make it difficult. Just a slew of early minions can sometimes make it difficult if you start taking too much damage and have to use Cloak of Shadows earlier than you'd like to. You'd obviously like to be able to have that lethal set up, but you kind of got to fly by the seat of your pants when you use Cloak of Shadows earlier. Just hope you find the damage, which not always super reliable, but does have a Swine Tusk Shank, so we're cooking.
And it's not just the Shank, but bunch of poisons to be able to buff it with. Not the most high damage output ones, but kind of the ones you want to see for this stage of the game against Miracle Rogue, where you are still kind of trading with some minions biding your time before you get to put out the increments of damage that simply cannot be erased by the Miracle Rogue. Whereas if you do leave up these small minions, then you can sometimes lose on board. The Silver Leaf and Paralytic will have something to say about that. But the timing of the Cult Neophyte from Jobsad makes it such that City's only able to play one of those poisons next turn, which is why I think it's really smart that he started with Vanessa instead of Cult Neophyte going into the weapon turn, even if the Vanessa doesn't get any additional value.
Yep. Definitely a fan of the sequence name Jobsad as well. Has another Cult Neophyte to back it up too. Could I was gonna say could like Cold Neophyte in the Secret Passage to find like Shadow Step to do it again.
Yeah. I think this might not be the turn for the second Cult Neophyte. I think Jobsad, having seen a poison already committed for draw and not seen the Paralytic poison, perhaps he wants to go wider on board instead here. So I am still looking at the Passage. I just wonder if he's meant to coin first, because Passage, even without the coin, can get him Mancrik, but if you coin first, you can potentially play a Kazakus or just more minions.
A couple of 2-drops. That is tough.
It's true that the Neophyte is probably still most impactful right now, though, because City still needs to like get some card draw rolling or more poisons in order to actually get the weapon to a relevant attack total. And so Jobsad is going for kind of a halfway play where he does go wide and still puts Neophyte on board, even though the Prize Plunder is a relatively low impact minion. He's valuing the disruption more so than utmost board development.
Yeah, which I kind of like the middle ground there.
But he's still going to get some card draw through, though. Mancrik enters the hand, which is big because he is able to keep drawing, but no additional poison, which means that we're looking at potentially last charge of the Swine Tusk Shank next turn.
It's kind of crazy. And doesn't even have a way to find it. Like a hand that, a Weapon Rogue hand that lacks a poison and lacks any card draw or Secret Passage. Kind of insane.
But he has plenty of good top decks. Cutting Class, like you said, the Secret Passage. Even a One Maker to some extent, because that's very likely to get you a poison. Ooh. Contacts for Jobsad.
Too quiet.
Care to make a
Oxy
wager,
has a
friend?
decent chance of keeping the train going, but even if it doesn't, it's still just good to get stuff on board for Jobsad. He's just trying to win the race here, not get maximum value off of field contact.
Yep.
And I don't think it's necessarily worth playing the Brain Freeze here on his One Thief just to get an additional draw. Because it's not like he's got Mancrik in the deck for something super impactful to do right after.
I guess that's true. I don't know. I probably would have done it just for the cycle, just because I'm used to just whipping it out automatically. But okay, Cutting Class. Yep. What?
Oh, still no poisons or One Maker or Secret Passage. That's unbelievable. He does have re-equip of the Swine Tusk Shank, but that's extremely slow.
That is way too slow. That is brutal.
Incredible. So
That's
many
incredible.
options.
And he has to get rid of field contact.
Look what I
Oh my gosh, Jobsad. Stop rubbing salt in the wound. And so,
Incredible.
is he just gonna float a bunch of mana this turn? Because if he's gonna swing, I think he needs to spend the rest of the turn re-equipping. Or it could just be Mancrik to put that in the deck and then swing, have one more chance at getting the 3/7, and then send a Wicked Stab face so he can spend the mana. Can he even afford to send it face? He's at 15.
No, I don't know. Yeah, just trying to chew through some minions
Oh.
here.
Zakus for
looking for a
one cost, potentially?
For one?
I don't know. I'm a spend your mana gamer.
We'll see. We'll see.
These are not the keywords he was looking for, though. I mean, if he did take the 5 cost, then stealth is pretty good, just to make sure that CD can't coerce them the next turn and set up a lethal 2 turns from now, potentially.
It is a 1.
Didn't get the board buff, which is the one I was thinking of as the main reason for getting the 1, just pushing immediate damage and trying to get City down to the range of a Wicked Stab. But he does get some taunts.
Which is actually incredibly annoying for CD.
Yeah.
Choose
Quite a good golem.
Low-key.
Very efficient. Like a better renowned performers because it all happens at once.
Strictly better, some might say.
Still, you know, Jobsad's, wait. Yeah, a bit of damage short, right? Like, CD could get away with not playing a Cloak of Shadows here, even if he doesn't really clear anything off the board, because it would have to be some additional reach. Jobsad, I guess, could, like, attack with Kazakus and then Tim with the Kazakus and look for buff again.
Right. So, by not clearing anything or face tanking only to clear, CD can still survive to just Wicked Stab Dagger, but combinations of cards like replaying the Kazakus or second Wicked Stab or something generated off of 1 Thief are scary. So he is going to partially respect this by cashing in 1 Coerce, and he does get a weapon online in the meantime and can maybe try and get there with the Cloak of Shadows consecutively, but I think it's unlikely. And this rush is brutal as well. Oh my goodness.
Yep.
A 1-1 taunt is so huge here.
It really is. I mean, it hasn't protected that much damage yet, but that damage would start to add up over time, and they've actually done a decent amount of damage by themselves because they've attacked and CD has had to attack into them. So, and now begins the part of the game where CD has to Cloak of Shadows turn after turn and is nowhere even close to killing Jobsad.
Oh, not seeing it. Even if he does get the Cloak of Shadow, the second Cloak of Shadows next turn, the weapon is only at 3 attack, and with 9 mana to work with, let's say he hits both Deadly Poisons and the second Wicked Stab, that's still not enough. Second Sinister Strike as well, I think that's still not enough. So I think CD has to generate some miracles off of Wandmaker or something like that.
Come, friend. Let's see what you've got.
Not looking promising.
What makes something real?
And he just hits a taunt as well.
Yep.
After both Coerce are gone.
Yep. There's no chance for CD here. Doesn't even have the cloak. Obviously has a decent chance of picking it up with both Swindle and Secret Passage, but
Not meant to start with Swindle. Yeah, I think with 9 mana, you can still play whatever comes off of the Secret Passage anyway. Just looking for Cloak to potentially stay alive as the first order of business, and then you can try and piece together some very niche win condition from there maybe, but okay. You can play the second Passage to try and find the second Cloak.
yeah, it just feels like it's delaying the inevitable though.
And
No real option though.
you can go Poison Wandmaker, which would be
So many.
5 cards played prior to the Prize Plunderer, right? And then he can still go Secret Passage and then Swing Face and get the Cloak down. That's something.
Okay, so then would have 6 damage. So we need to find 12 damage the very next turn.
Which, maybe.
There's the Man Crick, there's a Deadly Poison,
Yeah.
Strike, Wicked Stab. Okay.
Yeah, and the Wicked Stab goes up to rank 3 next turn. I didn't even notice. Wait,
Yeah.
he's just winning.
I would say that, right? Because the 12 damage would have to be not including the weapon. So Paralytic, Wicked Stab, Sinister Strike, that's only 10. So if Wandmaker found another Sinister Strike, or if Mancrit comes off the top, there's actually a good amount of outs here.
Yeah, it's not just off the top, right? He gets another draw with the weapon swing itself because there's a silver leaf poison on it. So I think he's just in the lead somehow. And now it's up to Jobsad to find some type of disruption, Cult Neophyte. Has he played both? Wand Thief
He's
or
played
a
both
Mage
Cold Neophytes.
Secret?
Yep. Have both Wand Thieves been played as well?
I don't think so.
Probably.
And he's actually just shooting his own illusion minions to create board space. I think that's very smart. Shoot his own minion again here. Give himself as many chances of hitting Wand Thief as possible. Oxyfrog can still find Wand Thief, but then he won't have mana to play a Mage Secret.
Tenwu Jandis?
For taunts, yeah. I think that's his
Well,
best
you
shot
only
right
get
now.
one minion.
Taunt. My bad.
A taunt, yeah. It's the only chance.
And it has to be the one on the left as well to actually fit.
What makes something real?
Not a taunt. Oh, and he got there! That's insane. That is insane.
That's just lethal. 12
Weapon
damage
rogue.
from the weapon and the Wicked Stab, and then the Sinister Strike for the 15. Unbelievable. I thought City was out of this.
Weapon Rogue is just the nuts. Who cares about everything that we said about the deck leading up to this very moment? Weapon Rogue just gets there.
I'm out of cards.
I thought there were so many points in this game. I was like, there's no chance. He's out of it. Absolutely zero chance. He's going to die. There's no way he can kill him over 2 turns with Cloak of Shadows. He doesn't even have the second Cloak of Shadows in hand. Who cares? Got there anyway. Very impressive performance. The turn where he didn't even start spending his cards, right? He prep swindled first, had a bunch of mana to spend, but went with just Secret Passage with 8 mana left. Like rare that he's going to hit those cards. He realized that he needed to hit both, like Prize Plunder that would clear the taunt, push the damage, and get Cloak of Shadows, and he was able to do that. So that turn was incredibly impressive, and was what allowed CD to find that win at the very end. Nicely done.
Just insane how close that became. Like, I honestly thought the taunt off of the Jandis for Void Drinker was unnecessary at that point for Jobsad. Like, yes, it was nice, but he was already winning so hard. But I just failed to consider the consequences of City just hitting second Cloak of Shadows, even if he didn't hit the maximum poisons on his weapon immediately. The fact that he's able to see the end of his deck so consistently because of the double Silverleaf poisons, because of finally finding the passages and the cutting class towards the end. It was amazing to see it pull through a win at the end, and I'm very glad to have gotten the TJ special at my last cast of the day with you, TJ, just being very results oriented with how much you like a deck.
Yep.
Chef's kiss.
Yep. Delicioso. But yeah, that is the last match of the round, which means this is the last match of Swiss all together, and there's the top 16. A lot of big names in the top 16, led by, no, not Bunny Hopper. Put your eyes down a little bit. Yep, right there. Number 4, Monsanto, 8-1. The biggest highlight of this top 16. Yet another top 16 for Monsanto, finished top 8, Master Tour Orgrimmar. The far and away the highest point earner for the Americas region by triple at this point, I think, because Just Saying has 12, and now Monsanto has like 37, 34, 36, 37, one of those numbers guaranteed. So just incredible performance. Ignore the fact that Bunny Hopper has all but re-promoted to Europe Grandmasters, has had incredible performance himself. No, all about Monsanto here in this top 16.
Ignore the fact that Gabby could be on his way to back-to-back Masters Tour wins. Ignore the fact that Okashinsuke has now promoted himself to 8-pack Grandmasters. Ignore the fact that there's actually more than one American player, or America's player, in the top 16. we have Leandro Leal sneaking in there towards the bottom half of the top 16. And I think we have what's, relatively to what we're used to, a pretty even mix of all the regions there. Granted, it's not so much APAC as it is Japan. And then China, of course, being very, very consistent. But I'm happy from an APAC caster perspective. We also just have some Grandmaster European players there, both future and future reinstated with Gabby and Bunny Hopper. And I think this is going to be an incredible top 16. And no matter which half of it gets to move on to tomorrow, I will be very excited as a viewer and a caster.
I guess those storylines are all pretty neat, but we all just want to see Monsanto's hat. That's what it comes down to at the end of the day. But yeah, jokes aside, I do think that this is an incredible top 16. And yeah, a lot of cool threads to follow as we get into that round of 16, and then tomorrow once we have our top 8 decided and getting down to it. The consistency of some of the players in the top 16 can't be understated as well, with many making multiple appearances in the past 3 Masters Tours alone. So very cool to see. But that is it from the Swiss round coverage. We're not done yet. We are going to broadcast at least one match of the round of 16 and try and get you guys some updated top 8 standings by the end of the broadcast today, if we can. But before we jump into those matches, we are going to have to go to a quick break. But don't go anywhere. More Masters Tour Dalaran right after this.